So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Subroto Sarkar. I'm the coordinator of NANO. We have also Dr. Lilian Cook with us, who is the scientific coordinator of POGO. So those who are not aware of NANO, NANO is the NF POGO alumni network for the ocean. And this is a global network of former and current scholars from different training programs offered by Nippon Foundation and Partnership for Observation of Global Ocean, which we call NF POGO. So all the scholars who received training from NF POGO are the member of NANO. And our teachers and mentors are also the member of is to maximize the training received by the alumni from different training programs. We have many activities and we have also research projects. So this NANO is one of the such research project. So the full form of NANO is a global study of coastal deoxygenation, ocean acidification, and productivity at selected sites. The objectives of this NANO is to support in situ measurements of essential oceanographic variables at the selected sampling sites. And we also provide capacity building opportunities, and we also promote outreach and citizen science activities. Currently, NANO has 31 sampling sites from 17 countries, and these countries are from Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So all the sampling representatives are the responsible for the sampling from these sampling sites, and the NANO members are usually the representative of these sampling sites. This webinar is also one of the objectives of this NANO project, through which we offer capacity building initiatives. So in this webinar, we invite the alumni to share their recent research activities with us. So it helps us to enhance our knowledge in recent research in marine science. And this webinar is open to all, so anyone can join in this webinar. Today we have Dr. Ana Carolina Peralta Brichtova from Universidad Simón Bolívar, Venezuela. So she will talk about how much do we know about seagrass in Venezuela. So thank you, Carol, for accepting our invitation. Dr. Carol holds a bachelor degree in biology and a PhD degree in natural science with a background in marine biology. She has over 10 years of experience in academia, teaching, research, and outreach activities related to marine invertebrate biology, biodiversity in seagrass ecosystem, and invasive species. Currently, she is working with the classification of optical satellite imagery to determine the spatio and temporal variability of seagrass ecosystems and its extensions. Dr. Carol has been involved with various global programs on marine biodiversity, such as the Marine Global Earth Observatory, which is MarineGEO, the Marine Biodiversity Observation Network, which is MBON, and the Ocean Biodiversity Information System, which is OBIS. Dr. Carol is the main coordinator of the OBIS Capacity Development Task Team and one of the data managers for the Caribbean OBIS Node. Former trainee from the POGO Score Visiting Fellowship Program and the NF POGO Center of Excellence in Observational Oceanography, Dr. Carol is an active NANO member who has been involved in various research and outreach initiatives from the alumni network. So for all of your information, this webinar has two segments. In first segment, we'll have a talk from our speaker, and in second segment, we'll have a question and answer session. And this webinar is recorded. So, and later we will upload the recordings in the POGO YouTube channel. So if anyone has obligation for being recorded, please switch off your camera. So thank you for listening to me. Now over to you, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you, Subrata, for this opportunity. And well, thank you to the audience for attending this talk. And as Subrata mentioned, I'm going to talk about how much do we know about seagrasses in Venezuela. So, yeah, well, first before starting my talk, I wanted to share this funny cartoon that was sent to me a few days ago. One of my colleagues sent this to me, and I find it very funny. And well, this reminds me how within research, sometimes we can get some unexpected results, especially if we don't really know very well how our ecosystems works or how some organisms live. So yeah, just breaking the ice here, and now I want to walk you through the main topics I'm gonna talk about. So I would like to briefly talk about my background and my motivations for studying seagrasses. I mean, how did I came up with studying seagrasses? In a second section, I will talk about like a background of the knowledge of seagrasses in Venezuela, like a literature summary about what do we know about seagrasses in Venezuela, what has been done. And in the third part of my talk, I'm gonna show a little bit of my progress related to the works or the research I am doing right now. And in the last part of my talk, I will talk a little bit about what's next, like yeah, where I'm going with my research. What do I expect to find with my studies? So why seagrasses? Why did I decide to study seagrasses? Well, it all started during my PhD. It was my first approach or my first contact with seagrasses while I was studying the abundance, density, reproduction strategies, and feeding behavior of South Caribbean endemic gastropod. And this beautiful animal lives within the seagrass beds. So yeah, I found that there is an interesting world down there that needs to be discovered. So this is why I started to be interested in seagrasses. So yeah, this is some general questions that I have been working on in order to set the baseline for my studies. So how many species of seagrasses do we have in Venezuela? Why are seagrasses important? And which data or information are relevant for studying seagrasses? So the resulting literature research shows that there are around 60 seagrass species around the world. And in Venezuela, we just have 8 species plus 1 non-native species that was recently reported. Thalassia testudinum is the most common seagrass species that we can find along the Venezuelan coast. However, recently we can find this species mixed together with the invasive species Alophila sticulacea. This invasive species was reported for the first time in the Caribbean in year 2002, and in Venezuela was reported for the first time in the year 2013. So after that, several other occurrences were reported, and now personally I'm very interested to understand the dynamic between these invasive species and the local species. So why are seagrasses important? Well, they provide food and shelter for a wide variety of animals, some of them being critical to local economies. Seagrasses also provide oxygen through the photosynthesis process. Seagrasses also serve as a mechanism to retain carbon, to what we know carbon as we know carbon sequestration. Seagrasses provide protection against local coastal flooding and erosion because they attenuate wave energy near the shore. Well, which data are really important or relevant for studying seagrasses? So yeah, there are many different data and information that we can get and to use to study seagrasses. But according to the Global Ocean Observing System and to the BioEco panel of experts, there are two main or two most important variables that should be considered for studying seagrasses, like seagrass associated fauna, seagrass cover, and composition. This panel defined recently the ecological variables, considering some essential measurements that are important to assess ecosystem health and to detect some changes through time. So, for example, the seagrass extent cover is an important measure or an important metric for ecosystem health. So as well, the benthic invertebrate abundance and diversity is also considered as an essential ocean variable. So what have been done in Venezuela? So years ago, there was a very important effort for performing a long-term monitoring program. This is how came the Caribbean coastal marine productivity. So this was a network, a contribution of several marine laboratories around the Caribbean who were collecting data of biomass, productivity, and associated fauna of mangroves, coral reefs, and seagrasses. Venezuela was part of this program, and we were collecting data during 6 years. So this program was executed in Venezuela by the Institute of Technology and Marine Science of the Simón Bolívar University, and also by Fundación La Salle. And one of the most interesting results that we got from this program is that there was detected a reduction in biomass of the seagrass biomass in some locations, and that this may be a response to the abundance of rainfall. In this slide, I'm showing like a general overview of how much research has been done in Venezuela regarding the number of publications of different seagrass research topics. And we can see that in Venezuela, we started reporting about seagrasses or studies have been, seagrass research have been started since the year 1978. So some efforts have been made to get familiar or to understand seagrasses. However, the information about seagrasses are very indirect, I would say, or have been collected in a very indirectly way, because most or many of the researches or articles, they speak about, they're focusing on let's say, for example, associated species or the biodiversity, let's say, of fishes or biodiversity of macroinvertebrates that live in seagrasses, but they are not focusing directly on what is happening in that ecosystem or in that community. So they just mention like the presence or the occurrence of the seagrasses because it's part of the environment where this associated fauna is living. So yeah, there's like an absence or a lack of group of researchers that are dedicated exclusively to work on seagrasses. So also based on the literature review from indexed articles and some gray literature provided directly by researchers, I can show here in this graph like the main scientific topics related to seagrasses according to the number of publications per topic. And we can see here that seagrass associated fauna has the highest number of publications, followed by seagrass species occurrence and seagrass biomass. And the last number of publications are the one related to epiphytes and seagrasses and associated algae. On the other side, I mean, under my literature review, I could see, I mean, in terms of the whole number of species that we have in Venezuela, I could see that the highest number of publications are dedicated to Thalassia testurinum, which is because it's obvious because I said before that Thalassia testurinum is the most common species that we find in Venezuela. So we really don't know much about the other species. And if we put together this information of this previous graph plus this one, we can conclude that what we more know about seagrasses in Venezuela is like Thalassia testurinum associated fauna. As I mentioned previously, this might be like a kind of indirectly information because the studies or the investigations are focusing more in the fauna than in the seagrass or the relationship between the seagrass or the fauna. It's not very well exposed in the articles. So what I'm doing now, I am performing field data collection in a location at the central coast of Venezuela. It's called La Ciénaga de Ocumare. And I am interested, for the moment, I'm interested in seeing what is happening in two different seagrass meadows, one represented by the local species, Thalassia testurinum, and the other one represented by the invasive species. I'm trying to somehow answer questions related, for example, to how different the community can be related, for example, to the associated fauna. Can I find the same species associated to Thalassia and also at the same time in Alophila stipulacea? How are the organisms using these two different ecological structures or these two different meadows? So for this, I am applying the seagrass assessment protocol from MarineGEO, and this consists of placing 3 transects per station or per location. And within each transect, I collect the cover percentage, seagrass density, seagrass shoot features, and also collect information about the macrobenthic animals that are living within the seagrasses, and also collecting information about the fish's biodiversity. So in this slide, I wanna very briefly show like the kind of data I'm getting out of my studies. So as I mentioned before, I am interested in seeing what is happening or describe how is the community in the invasive species, Alophila stipulacea, against the Thalassia testurinum meadow. So I have so far some values already. This is the working in progress. I don't have any conclusions by the moment, but I have information about seagrass cover, density, biomass above and below the ground. And yeah, I mean, in general, these values of the biomass, specifically the biomass, represent, I mean, the numbers are representing a kind of relative high biomass compared to the values I am finding in other articles from other countries in the Caribbean. So to get an idea, like in general, the biomass can go, it varies a lot. It can go from 1,000 to 4,000 grams per square meter. And well, the values I'm getting here is more or less that. And this is like high values. Okay, this is high values of biomass. But well, in general, the interpretation or the relevance of these values are not yet being addressed, but this is the next step I want to do. There's more data that I need to analyze. So yeah. And in addition to the field data collection, I'm starting now to also apply new methods and tools that may be useful to bring a better understanding of the dynamic of the seagrasses. So yeah, I got the opportunity last year to get trained in the use of optical satellite images and learning how to do seagrass classification using tools like Google Earth Engine, and of course, learning how to process the images, how to perform the required, like analyzing the images and learning how to use algorithms to do the seagrass classification. Also to do some corrections, like atmospheric corrections. And yeah, what I got for the moment is this preliminary result. I use again this La Ciénaga de Ocumare site as a case study for learning how to do this seagrass classification. So yeah, I use images from Sentinel-2 for year 2020. And what I'm looking forward to do now is to extend or to expand this knowledge or this method to get like a seagrass habitat map for the whole Venezuelan coast. So yeah, at this point I want to thank Pogo and SCORE for the support to spend 3 months at the Institute for Marine Remote Sensing in the University of South Florida. And yeah, as I said before, like my next step is to try to map all the seagrasses that we can find along the Venezuelan coast. And being a little bit more ambitious, I would like to even try to start mapping the seagrasses in the South Caribbean. So what's next? Yeah, so combining field data plus remote sensing methods and data, I would like to be able to describe the characteristics of these plant communities, including their species composition and percent cover, describe the spatial and temporal patterns in the seagrass distribution along the Venezuelan coast, and well, try to answer how are any changes in seagrasses percent cover and species composition related to local pressures. So thank you very much for listening. And yeah, if you have some questions, I think now we will have some time to talk about it. And if you want to follow further what we are doing in our marine laboratory in Simón Bolívar University, you can follow us in our social media. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol, for your nice presentation. And now we'll have our question and answer session. So if anybody has any question, you can just ask, or you can just write in the chat box, so Carol can answer. Yeah, we have a question from Bolivar. Yes, Bolivar.
Hi, everyone.
Bolivar, you can, yeah.
Are you listening to me right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I have a couple of questions. First one, well, I am studying Marine Simón Bolívar Marine Biology Lab. So, hi, teacher. Hi, Professor Carolina. I have a couple of questions about, well, it's more like a personal experience, a question about personal experience doing that program about analyzing satellite images. So I would like to ask to you, Professor Carolina, how was the experience working with all these images in satellite using all the programs and all the software that you have to speak about?
Yeah, Osvaldo, hello. It's nice to see you here. Yeah, so my experience was really rewarding. At the beginning, I must say it was a little bit like, I would say like nervous, because it was really new. I have to learn about a lot of coding and how to use this tool, Google Earth Engine, which I recommended because it's free. You can access to a lot of satellite images, and yeah, you can run some codes, and there are some very nice algorithms that allows you to perform and to get to your goals, in this case to do the seagrass classification. So yeah, of course it was a little bit difficult, as normal, as natural, but then when I was getting the results and seeing the mapping of the seagrass habitat, it was really rewarding, and I could understand the potential of these tools and methods.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we have Lika next. Lika.
Thank you, Carol. Really good work. I'm curious. I have actually two questions. First is, do you have any idea about this invasive species? When it came to Venezuela, and how was it brought?
It was, I mean, it was reported in year 2013, but it doesn't mean that it came at that time.
And do you know the origin?
It's from, I mean, by literature, I know it is a species that lives in the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea. And but the way how it came to Venezuela, I'm not really sure. I know that it was reported in the Caribbean for the first time in year 2002, and then reported in Venezuela in 2013. So I guess maybe with the ship transport, maybe there was like a piece of the plant that it's stuck in the ship holes, so it comes, or maybe by currents, because this organism or these plants also like reproduce by I mean the shoots can be released, and it can go just with the current and then settle in a new place. So currents also can be part of this transportation of parts of the plant.
Okay, can I dominate with another question? Sorry.
Sure.
I will leave Mabel in a second. Yeah, so I noticed, for instance, that the coverage is much higher also on these invasive species. I was wondering, do you see any strong impact in the ecosystem by the presence of this species?
I cannot see it now. I don't see any strong impact. I just can see that this species is growing really crazy. But what I cannot see yet either, if it's somehow like moving out the local species. What I can see in the hypothesis I have, and this is another thing that I want to try or I want to prove, is that Alophila, I don't think will settle in the same, like in the same substrate that Thalassia, because apparently it seems that Alophila likes to or prefers to live in a muddy sand, like it's sand very, very, very thin. Mm-hmm. And Thalassia lives in a more in a sand, like has a very more bigger grain size. And for example, in La Ciénaga de Ocumare, in the past, where now there is the Alophila, there was nothing. There was just muddy sand. So I think at some point, some part of the plant arrived to that inlet and like found this empty space and started settling there.
Okay.
But
and then
yeah.
my last question is it possible for you? I was reading about seagrasses the other day, and I learned that they can uptake CO2 from the atmosphere 35 times faster than tropical rainforests.
Yeah.
And you know, it's such a small area, coverage area around the globe then covers. So I was wondering, with what you learn now with mapping seagrasses, are you able to infer CO2 budget or some kind of like how much Venezuelan and seagrasses field can contribute to CO2 uptake?
I think in the near future I will be able to do that, but for the moment I don't have enough information. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to that too. This is a very good approach, and actually, yeah, I thought about that too. And yeah, another thing comes into my mind is that, okay, I mean, we are talking about an invasive species, and sometimes we think that this is something like bad and that we can get very bad consequences about that. But if we think about the carbon sequestration, and if this species is really landing in an empty space and it's not like taking off the local one, so you can see it like a positive thing, you know. So because you will have more photosynthesis in an area where you before were having just some isolated patches of grass. Now you have the whole inlet covered with the seagrasses. So you could say, okay, there is more carbon sequestration. That could be good from that point of view.
And shelter for the local fauna as well,
definitely,
right? Do you
yes.
see the difference between fish presence between those two fields or patches?
Again, repeat the question, please.
If you see difference between the fish presence, in fish presence between the patches of native and the non-native species?
Not yet in fishes, but yes in the macroinvertebrates. And the Alophila, I don't see much mobile animals like sea stars or big snails. I just see like sessile, like sponges, and these ascidians group of invertebrates. And compared to the Thalassia testurinum, the local one, I have seen sea urchins, sea stars, snails, and yeah, I mean, with invertebrates, I can notice the difference between the two seagrasses.
Okay, I shut up now. Thank you.
No, it's fine.
Thank you. So we have a few more questions. So next question is from Amabella. Amabella?
Hi, hello, Subrata. Hi, Lika. Hello, Carol.
Hi, Amabella.
Congratulations on your presentation, and also you did a lot. Knowing that there are only a few researchers or scientists doing that in your country, And yeah, you already did a lot in terms of assessment and mapping. So congratulations on that. My question actually is because you mentioned that there's actually a lack of researchers and research studies on seagrasses in your place. So the number of species or the diversity that you mentioned, is it could be because there's a lack of research done, or does this mean that maybe there's more around if there will be more assessment in the near future?
Yeah, definitely, Amabella. I mean, the number of species that are reported for Venezuela, it has been reported by one researcher that she was in the past dedicated a lot to seagrasses, and she did a lot. Actually, she's from the Universidad Central de Venezuela, and she was one of the first researchers who started to get in contact or to understand seagrasses. So she's more like a marine botanist because she works in seagrasses and macroalgae. So she took care of identifying all these species that we know now. But of course, if we put more efforts and if we ideally add a bunch of researchers that are exclusively dedicated to seagrasses, I'm sure that we may find something more.
Okay. I have another question. You also mentioned that you had this long-term monitoring of seagrass, and they observed a decrease in biomass, if I heard it correct, and because of the rainfall. So is there like a conclusive correlation of this decrease in biomass that's maybe due to rainfall, or do you think there may be other factors like other anthropogenic activities like eutrophication? Because like it's really interesting to know the main drivers of the reduction of the seagrasses.
Yeah, definitely, you're right. I mean, there must be other also drivers. So this result, what I exposed in my slide, it's just like a hypothesis that came out from the results of that study, you know, because of course there were recorded like high rainfalls for some seasons at that moment. When they were taking the data, and it seems that the rainfall has something to do with this seagrass biomass reduction, but it's not only because of that. The location where these seagrasses were studied is a high touristic place, so of course there are some other anthropogenic pressures that may have been affecting the seagrasses. But for this study, the variables that they could collect take them to that conclusion. That is, it's not a definitely conclusion. It's like another hypothesis that may need to be tested.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question in chat box from Muhammad Adizul Islam. Hello, Dr. Ana Carolina Peralta. Thanks for your nice presentation and give us your valuable time. I have a question to you. Can we plant seagrass in coastal region where erosion occurs naturally? Carol.
Well, I honestly don't have experiences with planting seagrasses or seagrass recovering projects, but yeah, and I haven't read much about it, but I think there are some places that they are doing some efforts of doing this kind of activities and projects, but yeah, I don't really know. I cannot give an accurate answer for this.
Okay.
Can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Can I share something
Yeah.
about the restoration of seagrass, if it's okay?
Yes, please.
So actually, we were also looking at the restoration of seagrass in the Philippines, but the thing is that this is quite expensive, And in terms of manpower and the knowledge of how we are going to do this, because there's only a few studies or activities that's been done on the restoration. But I think it's very important also to note that with restoration, we need to know what our objectives really are. If we want to restore something, or we want to restore the seagrasses in an area which has degraded seagrasses, or we want to have the seagrasses in an area where you have no seagrasses in the first place. So I think that it's one of the important factors to consider, especially if the reason is like there is a decrease or a degraded seagrasses and we want to restore it, then it's important to know the factors that cause the degradation of the seagrasses or your other habitats, because otherwise the effort of restoration might not be that much of an impact, because we need also to address the cause of the degradation of this habitat. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Annabella.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess there is another question from John, which is related to this question. Is there any interest in restoration in Venezuela?
By the moment, no. I mean, personally, yeah, I would be interested in participating in this kind of initiative, but no, I mean, there is nobody asking for that in Venezuela or requesting some questions, or no, nothing about that.
Okay. Then next we will go to Ranit. Ranit, you can ask your question.
Hi, Carolina. Thank you for the nice presentation. So I have a basic doubt. So I'm also working with the coastal habitats of India to understand the variability, like the time series variability of coastal habitats by using satellite data, basically multispectral data. So one of the major setback for me is the water column correction, because the softwares which I'm using, LDAS Imagine and ArcGIS, they don't have any native modules for water column correction. So whether this Google Earth Engine, do they have any modules or algorithm for water column correction?
For water column correction, yeah, I remember I applied one algorithm, and yes, I mean, it's possible to do it with Google Earth Engine.
Good. So in that case, then I will shift from ArcGIS to Google Earth Engine, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have few more minutes. So if you have any question, you can ask. Okay, Carol, I have a question. So how easy it is to map the seagrass using the remote sensing technique in the turbid water?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry, I was distracted.
Okay. How easy it is to map the seagrass habitat in the turbid water using the remote sensing technique?
In turbid waters?
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is difficult. I mean, during my training, I had to select images, and I have to left aside the images where it was showing like turbidity. I was not using that images. So I did for the year I was doing the study, like for 2020, I was selecting the best images that I could use for being sure that what I was classifying was seagrass. If I saw some turbidity or some very shiny images or with clouds, I was just not using that image. So in total, I used for this classification 4 or 5 images that you put together like in a mosaic, and then you do the seagrass classification with these 4 or 5 best images you can get from the whole year.
And what should be the minimum cloud coverage, or is there any minimum level of total suspended solids level in water for monitoring the seagrass?
Well, this detail I don't have the questions right now. I know I wrote it in my notes somewhere, but I cannot answer this just right now.
Okay. Okay. Then we
I'm
have
not that
another question
expert
from-
yet. I'm sorry.
No problem. And next question is from Lika. Yeah.
It's
Lika.
it's a continuation of your question actually. So, did you do any processing on the image besides atmospheric removal? Or you use visible true color image, or you use band ratio, all these kind of different
Yes.
processing?
Band ratio, and I did cloud cover correction and water column correction, and I think something else I don't remember right now. And yeah, this.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Carol, I have another question. So you mentioned that your next step is to characterize the seagrass community, right?
Yes.
So are you going to apply the remote sensing to do that?
Community involves like different species, and in terms of identifying with optical satellite images which seagrass species is where, it's something difficult. I don't think I can do it now. However, I have been reading that some satellite images are coming out with a very, very good resolution, but these are, I mean, they're not really free yet to be used. But I think in the near future, we will be able to even see or detect or discriminate seagrass species from satellite images. But for the moment, this is not possible. And about the other composition of the community that involves, let's say, fishes or macroinvertebrates, I mean, I don't think I can do that with satellite images. So that's why I'm saying that I want to combine, I mean, to understand this ecosystem, I want to combine field data collection with remote sensing data collections and methods.
Okay, thank you, Carol. So still we have few more minutes, so still you can ask question. Yeah, Onur.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the talk, Carol. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the talk, but I want to ask like most of the questions already asked also. So I would like to ask like something else, like about the mobility of the like researchers. Like, for example, is it possible to conduct like a research projects for the internationals in Venezuela? I mean, is it possible to make these collaborations and to do the field work in Venezuela nowadays?
I mean, we can of course try to do some collaboration work, but honestly, now in Venezuela we are having a hard time for research. We are not having the enough fundings for doing research, and yeah, it's a little bit difficult now. And to bring experts or to bring colleagues from other countries and support them, for us now it's very difficult. I would say impossible. But what I'm doing right now is like I'm working in collaboration with other groups, but everyone takes like their data in their own country, and we're just trying to compare what we are getting out from our like personal works or personal sites. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
That's the situation.
Yeah. Thanks for.
So I would love to have colleagues in my country that goes with me to the field and collect data. And
yeah,
if you would be interested, I mean, you would be welcome to come. But I don't have now the resources to support your visit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we don't have any more questions. So we will close our webinar here. And thank you all for joining us, and special thanks to Carol for your nice and great discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lika. Thank you, Subrata, for this space, and thank you all the audience for taking the time to listen my talk.